Hi, this is Bob Vinton. I hope you'll enjoy today's video presentation of the path to outsized profits. What is the path to make outsized profits in your business? I believe it centers around focusing on the customer in your strategy. Let me explain. There is for sure a paradox in business today. Businesses have an obligation to the owners and shareholders to grow and generate profits. But if this becomes the primary focus, the management and workforce can focus on the wrong things. I think it's very important that a business needs to focus on providing value to the customer as its primary goal, and that's especially true in technology businesses. As Peter Drucker said in 1973, the goal of a company is to create customers, and the only way that you're going to do that is to provide value to them. So focusing on this is truly critical as you set your strategy. The alternative is the focus on maximizing shareholder value. And I think this can lead to behaviors that, although not inherently bad, can produce the wrong kind of results for the company. An internal focus on denominator management, which means focusing only on the cost side of the equation as opposed to growth in revenue. And that leads to excessive cost cutting and capability cutting as well. Merger and acquisition activity whose only goal is top line growth with bottom line savings in the name of efficiency, but not in the name of strategic capability acquisition to build the competencies of the firm. Third, using available cash for share buybacks to improve earnings per share instead of making further investments in new capabilities. Choosing lower risk, lower reward projects for investment because they're safe and because nobody's going to get fired for doing that. But again, we lose the opportunity to manage our risk higher and make higher return projects. Placing a systemic lid on innovation is somewhat of an outgrowth of that, but in general, just the attitude that we're not going to invest in interesting projects that are higher risk. We're going to do incremental line of sight type programs tends to demotivate the technical staff and make them less interested in going above and beyond to innovate and do new things. Business unit competition instead of cooperation is definitely an outgrowth of over-focus on financial metrics because the managers are generally incentivized and need to make those numbers happen. And a lot of this can be driven by an overall obsession with quarterly results in order to drive the stock price, which generally means the top management's incentives have been set around this. So what should you be doing instead? I would propose that you need to focus the organization on innovating to create value and delighting the customer. That is the engine of generating value not only for the customer, but for your owners. You need to invest spare cash in innovative new products and services. That's what's going to drive the growth. Merger and acquisition activity to add new capabilities only when it takes too long to grow them organically. Generally, that's the best way if you can afford the time and investment in the capabilities to do it. But if you can't and you need to get to market faster, then the best way is to find another entity that you could acquire these skills and bring them into your company as quickly as possible. Ensuring incentives for businesses to cooperate and not compete. It's very important on an internal basis to make sure that the people play together in the fashion that you need them to in order to support the long-term customer focus and drive. So the path to profits starts with customer-focused innovation. I think you can see we need to go down from the top to the bottom instead of going from the bottom to the top. When we start at the top and go down the left side, we start the engine of continuous innovation. That generates recurring customer delight. This, of course, leads to winning market leadership because customers are going to see your company producing innovations and building excitement from them towards your products and services. Market leadership definitely drives financial results of growth in revenue, margins, and profits compared to the competition. And those are the things clearly that drive higher valuations and stock price. Alternatively, though, if you start at the bottom and try to go up, your focus on those stock price numbers and earnings per share generally lead to merger and acquisition activity and cost cutting to get the financial numbers that are desired, which impacts investments that could win market leadership because we're not getting the customer delight, because we're not generating continuous innovation. So I think that approach is a good one to focus on to make sure that you come at this problem the right way and try to avoid as much as possible being driven by the financial result to make decisions within the company and to set your strategy. A specific outgrowth of this is your strategy should not be a financial target driven, but it rather should be driven by a statement of what value you want to provide to the customer. So the strategic framework to implement this path is comprised of setting a good, solid strategic architecture. That starts with step one with what is known as strategic intent, and that isn't the inspiring goal for market leadership. That is focused on the customer. With this statement crisply done and well thought out, you set the focus for your people and you set the tone for the whole organization over a number of years to march together to go achieve this strategic intent. Great example is the statement by John F. Kennedy in the beginning of the 60s that by the end of the decade, the goal of the United States space program was to put a man on the moon and safely return him to the Earth. So that strategic intent statement set the focus for the entire space program through the 1960s and caused literally hundreds of new capabilities and innovations to be generated from NASA that have played out into society in many different ways. So that's a great example. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. The second part of that is to do the strategic planning exercise, but with a different focus than might normally be done. The goal here being to define the competencies needed to win the market leadership that we just talked about. So if you think back again to that space program, there are many new competencies that had to be developed technically that would put the U.S. in a competitive advantage state versus the competitor at that time, who was Russia. And clearly the thinking that went into that and the strategic planning and the investment roadmap all were geared around getting to that goal faster than the competitor could. The right environment is also essential, though, to do this within. And step three is what I call manage for innovation. And that means ensure that you've got the company culture in place to support doing what we talked about in the strategic architecture step. Getting knowledge workers, technical people to innovate takes multiple things. They have to be inspired, they have to be motivated, they have to have the right tools, they have to have autonomy to do the job in a fashion that will allow them the freedom and flexibility to create the innovations that you seek. So your challenges to them have to be supported with an environment that is most conducive to make that happen. And finally, a focused execution methodology is essential within the environment. to track progress over time. And again, we're just not counting financial numbers here. We're now talking about tracking innovation, the company environment, investments, and our progress towards the strategic intent in terms of market leadership, in terms of customer delight, and in terms of value created, all of which are not necessarily the things that people track in their businesses every day. So to make these things happen, it does take some changes to the infrastructure of the management of the company in order to march forward down this path. So in terms of outcomes, I think the key things that will come out of this for you would be an inspiring strategic intent to focus your people on over a multiple year time frame. The great thing is that generally is going to stand the test of time, and you are going to be able to use that for some time to be able to guide your people and to focus what's going on. The investments that you make will be prioritized and guided to build competencies necessary to win in the market versus your competition. The continuous innovations generated by the autonomous teams are the things that will ultimately generate the customer delight and get them excited about working with you as their primary supplier. A steady managed march over time to market leadership is really what you will observe when looking back over the multiple years, is that as the innovations happen, as you build momentum in the market, you will gain more market share until the point where you do overcome your competitors with more innovative solutions than they have. And finally, that results in growth and profits that exceed the competition, and that comes down to the bottom line of what the business is there to produce for the owners. Specifically on the profits, organizations that are continually focused on creating new value for the customer through innovation generally earn the highest market share. I think you're all familiar with companies such as Salesforce.com, Whole Foods, Google, Facebook, Starbucks. These are all leaders in their segments because they have innovated and they've made whole product offerings that are truly different and provide value to the customers. So they're great examples of that. And then the profits are a result of delighting that customer and providing disruptive innovation over time. Best example of that in today's tech world is Apple, who owns 90% of all the profits in the global smartphone market, even while Samsung has been the unit market share leader. So, I think you can ask yourself, would you rather be the unit market share leader? Would you rather be the profit market share leader? And I think, in terms of what this has done for Apple, in terms of building their cash machines so that they can continue to invest in new and innovative technologies, I think it's been a tremendous success on their part. And even though they were not the first mover in the cell phone market, they were when it came to bringing out new and innovative smartphones, and they took charge of that market and have never looked back. Management's role in all of this, of course, is to create the direction, the plans, and the environment that enable this to happen. And so that's where the focus has to come from the leadership team. So in summary, developing a strategic architecture comprising the inspiring intent and a plan becomes the organizational roadmap. And the path to outside profits is continuous innovation to create value for the customers aimed towards your strategic intent. Thank you for listening. Please visit the website at bobvintonconsulting.com for more information on this topic.